Welcome, welcome. We are back with another weekly session. We're focusing on mind, body, well-being, and what little daily things we can do to help shift our habits mentally, physically, emotionally, so that we can function better, feel better, balance our hormones, sleep better, manage the stress, all of those important things. So welcome. If you're joining later, catching the replay, you can always connect with me if you need the PDF guide, if you have questions, or if you need to set up a one-on-one session to go through your more specific challenges you have going on. All right, I'm going to share my screen here, share some strategies and tools to help you guys out, and then we'll, of course, answer questions at the end. You can put things in the chat, and we'll get to that. And then make sure everyone has specific strategies to support them and where they're at, of course, and to be able to, my goal is that when you walk away from this, you don't just feel like, oh my goodness, so much information. I want you to walk away and say, wow, that was awesome. I now have three specific strategies that I'm going to start to work on this next week or couple weeks so that I can feel better and work on these daily well-being habits. That is my goal. So that's why we always have the discussion at the end and everything. Okay, so last week we touched on the daily habits to help balance out supporting that stress relief and balancing hormones, not just cortisol. We did talk a lot about cortisol, but we also talked about how that cortisol balancing is connected to lots of other hormones like our estrogen, progesterone, endocrine system, serotonin, melatonin, all of that kind of stuff. So when we can support that balance, it helps in lots and lots of areas. So we talked about daily rhythms, small little daily habits, and getting the right little micronutrients in our daily meals and snacks and all of those things. So we went through some of these habits that can help with not just stress relief, but balancing cortisol and improving your ability to get good rest at night, in the evening and at night, so you can restore your adrenals and all of your hormones, really. And then that's going to set you up for the next day to have more serotonin, which is happier mood, better focus and concentration, improved motivation, right? Less irritability. We want all that. So that's why this was so important. And we talked about some foods that you can focus on next time you go to the store or get your groceries. You can include more of these types of things. And I did mention you can substitute. I actually think spirulina has more of the micronutrients that help specifically than the matcha. But if you prefer matcha, you can do that if you want. And the nice thing I like about spirulina is its flavor is not as strong. So I think it's easier to mix into any other thing you're already doing. Like you can put a little touch of it in a cup of tea and you'll hardly taste it, or in a smoothie. And it doesn't take much. Very small doses will give you a lot of power-packed nutrients. Toss a little tiny bit of it in a soup, a stir fry, because its flavor doesn't really conflict. The matcha kind of only goes with certain things. It's a little bit more limiting. But again, if you love matcha, great. Just know that getting like a matcha from a local coffee shop probably has a ton of sugar. So watch out for that. They tend to be very, very sweet. So you want to get the like very basic unsweetened matcha that's organic, of course. We don't want the pesticides. All right. So that's just my little diatribe on that. So these are some of those daily habits that we went through. Some of these are just common sense, but also with how busy our lives can be, the stress that we deal with, all kinds of different things that are going on, it can be harder than it feels, or harder than we might think, to really get consistent with some of these things. So that's why we talked about some of these habits. The physical activity, whether that's just walking or whatever it is, evening routines. I would say just adding one or two changes in your morning and your evening can really make a lot of big improvements over time. Not like right away the first day. It's going to take, a week, 2 weeks, maybe even a month or so. But you can see really huge improvements with just shifting a couple of things in the morning and the evenings. And then once you feel like you've got a handle on that, you can go from there. So that's just a little quick review of what we kind of went through on the last time. And these are some herbs that I mentioned to just kind of keep an eye out. If you can, if you see tea that has some of these things, grab those teas, have those teas on hand, especially for those days that you're really stressed and overwhelmed. You get home and you're like, oh my gosh, that was a crazy day, or just feel overwhelmed by the things that you're dealing with in life. Use these. If you can't find them in tea, reach out to me. I can recommend some like supplements, or like I have a lemonade powder that has a lot of these things in it. Things like that can be options, to look at. And then we did a few more foods over here, which some of these are the same. And of course, our nuts and seeds are always in these lists, which is funny to me that that's in almost every list for health, is like some sort of seeds or nuts. So kind of funny, unless you're allergic to nuts. So then obviously you're going to find something else, which is fine. Okay. So now today I want to focus on habit shifting. We've been kind of mentioning it as we've talked about other things as well, and focused a lot on different body systems to support like our hormones and all of that. But I want to just kind of go through, how do we actually change habits? So one of the first steps, of course, is just kind of recognizing any patterns that you have going on. What is triggering that habit? And sometimes we have to really kind of analyze it, because sometimes it's something we've done for 20 years. So it can take a minute to figure that out. But once we can figure out the thought or the emotion that is underlying that habit, that's not very functional, not very helpful for us, then we can begin to start shifting that. And yes, it takes a little bit of time. It's not a magic button. We've talked before about the kind of mental emotional shift of like, my mind, my mental and emotional path is going this direction. Once I recognize that I'm going in that direction that I don't want to, I'm going to try to pause. Even if you're halfway down the road, it's okay. Try to imagine shutting that door and shifting and intentionally thinking, okay, what's the direction I want to go? I want to go this way mentally and emotionally with this particular area. I'm going to open this door. So you're going to envision opening that door and pushing yourself that way. We've talked a lot about how incorporating prayer into doing that in scripture can also really help a lot. So you can utilize those types of things to really push you in a different direction. Using gratitude helps shift the brain and the thoughts and the emotions. Scripture, prayer. Some people use like affirmations as well. So there's lots of different tools and ways to do that. Along with doing that, you're also practicing how to regulate your nervous system, because as you're learning how to shift your mental emotional state, which again takes a little bit, that's okay. You are actually learning to help your nervous system shift out of an automatic mode that's basically a fight or flight response, typically in some form, into more of an intentional, calm, focused state, which is your parasympathetic system. And that's what we want to operate in most of the time, unless it's literally an emergency. It's okay to have some sympathetic response. So here's just some kind of information on how habits form, and what we can kind of understand that it does take a little bit. Give ourselves a little bit of grace. It's not going to, the first day, the first week, even the first month that we are working on a habit, it might not immediately shift. If it's something that's a little bit easier, like walking, the average amount of days is about 25 days. So again, give yourself a little bit of time, and don't be hard on yourself if like the first day you were trying to shift that habit, it didn't change, or you missed a day or whatever it was. Be like, okay, next day I just get to pick it back up. I'm human. I'm going to miss a day. I'm going to have off days. As long as you don't allow those off days to turn into off weeks, off months, off years, that's where it begins to become a bigger problem, right? You're just gonna be like, okay, hey, we all miss a day. We all, have a little glitch here and there, right? And then some of the harder habits can take longer, about 55 days average. And again, this is an average, but just to get an idea. 43% of our daily behaviors are a result of habits. That's a pretty good chunk. So understanding that as we shift those things, a lot of our daily behaviors can begin to change as well. And that includes things, even just our motivation, our mood regulation, those types of things. Our ability to handle stressors is connected a lot of times to the habits. Those are behaviors. 90% of our regular exercises, um, 90% of the regular exercises reported to having a set time in place. So having a consistent set time and day of always doing the exercises improves the consistency 90%. So again, routine, right? The routine helps a lot. 40% of long-term habit goals are given up within the first 3 weeks. That's pretty typical. So if you don't feel like you didn't master it in the first day or the first week, don't worry. That's normal. Typical minimum 18 days. And this is kind of focused on exercise, but it really does apply in a lot of areas, whether that's nutritional habits, mental habits, emotional habits, exercise habits. The numbers are all very similar. The median is about 66 days. Maximum, it can take up to 254 days. Now that's like a harder habit, like quitting smoking, or is like something a lot bigger typically. So really understanding that can help you give yourself a little bit of grace, and also know, I just need to pick it back up. I just need to keep going, keep going, keep going, one step at a time, one day at a time, do the best that I can. 37% of people report a desire to eat healthier and exercise more and save money. And this was done in like 2018. So that was interesting, the little study that I did. And one of the reasons I wanted to touch on this today is because we are going into a holiday season right now, right? So there's going to be lots of celebrations, extra treats, snacks, things like that, things at the store that might not normally be at the store, or lots of treats and desserts and whatnot that might be on sale. And that's just kind of more in the nutritional area. But along with that, we come with a season of less sunlight, which might be a little bit less serotonin potentially. Busyness. There's more things to do, more things to get done, more places to go, more people to see, right? With all the celebrations and festivities and things, which is fun, but also can put a little bit of strain on that nervous system, right? Can bump up that cortisol a little bit, can put our mental, emotional state in just a little bit of a heightened state. So all of that together with the nutritional part of it, maybe a little bit less serotonin. Many people report during the winter months, fall and winter months, their sleep is not as good. And I think it's because that shift in the sun setting earlier, and I think it rises a little earlier as well, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go check, but there is that shift happening. So I do think that it impacts our overall well-being. It can definitely impact things like our mood, our sleep, our immune system, right? People wonder, why is the fall and winter the like flu season? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but I do think the fact that we have way more junk food happening, probably less sleep or less quality sleep, a little bit lower serotonin, a little bit heightened stress, more things to do in less time, basically, that all can contribute. So what can we do? Well, we can't just avoid everything, but I wanted to go through some habit shifting so we can start doing that now. Rises later, sets earlier. So, yeah, so I think it's actually a little bit less dark time for, nighttime for sleep, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, when it comes to the sun setting earlier and rising a little bit later. Or is it a little bit more? Anyways, it changes. That's the main point. So we want to be intentional about regulating the nervous system. What can we do? We can be intentional about regulating the nervous system. We can be intentional about recognizing the patterns that we have that cause us to make some of those choices that are not as good for us, and start addressing that now. So as we go into the busier season, all the holiday things, the celebrations, the treats, the whatnot, we have a little bit more habits in place to kind of have that foundation to help support some of those better choices and moderating certain things. Not that we can't enjoy. I'm not saying don't enjoy certain occasional treats and celebrations, and that is completely fine. We just need to learn how to slightly modify and adapt so that we can support our overall well-being. Because if we don't, we may end up with more illnesses, sicknesses, so on and so forth. And of course, the stressed state can contribute to other mental and emotional things as well. So there are things that we can do. We can address the underlying emotions and mindset, which I touched on that, regulate the nervous system. So if you have habits in place to do those two things on a regular daily basis, even if it's once a day, you're already in a much better place than the average person. Start with small things. What are small things that you can do? So I'm going to go through some very specific habit shifts and things that you can do. And then this kind of just touches on that connection between our nervous system and the other things going on. And that's why, these habits are so, so important, right? We know that the mental state is going to impact our emotional regulation, our ability to cope with things, cognitive function, just even memory and focus are connected to what's going on with the mental and emotional state. If you're in a stress state, it's actually harder to remember things, like biologically. That's a fact. So knowing that, then okay, I need to regulate my nervous system a little bit right now because I'm having trouble focusing on what I need to do and even remembering what I'm trying to do to, I don't know, write down a list or go to this, like, maybe I shouldn't go to the store right now, or maybe I should take 2 minutes in this car before I go into the store to regulate a little bit because I'm not even remembering what I wanted to get at the store right now or whatever it is, right? Behavioral factors. Connection, of course, we know we've talked about how community encouragement, which is why we do this as a group session, the once a week, because I think having that encouragement, connection, and community is so, so vital for even just our emotional states, our emotional patterns, our mindset, right? All of that. So this just kind of goes through all those different factors of connection. Spiritually is obviously our purpose, our value, having those routines in place. This, kind of is generic, so it says, rituals, but those rhythms in our daily week, whether it's going to church, your Bible time, your journal time, your worship time, whatever that looks like for you, that prayer time, but having routines and rhythms on that daily is recommended, and it's biologically backed up now by science also, but also biblically. Those are going to be huge for our mental, emotional state and actual biological well-being. And it's crazy how the science is showing all of that. Our body, of course, we know, right? Our genetics, epigenetics, brain biology, our sleep, our nutrition, our breathing, our stress response, right? Nervous system, the microbiome, our gut, and all of that, our somatic system, exercise, all of those things. And it is connected to our nervous system. When the nervous system has identified something going on, that's our brain, our central nervous system, it goes through and it connects to all of these areas. And when something happens in one or more of these areas, it talks to the nervous system. The nervous system responds. The brain responds. The brain starts producing certain neurochemicals. We know this. I'm just reviewing, just to touch on that as a reminder. And I apologize, this one's a little bit blurry, but I'll go through it for you. and I'll try to find a better version for you. But here's just a few things that you can think about. Do not think you have to do all of these things. This is one thing I want to make sure you guys know. Pick one or two that stand out to you. Pick one of these each day of the week. You can say on Mondays, I do this one. On Tuesdays, I do this one. On Wednesday, that's fine too. If you like that, find something that works for you. If you just feel like I can only handle one thing, pick one. Just try to do that one thing every day, even if it's just 1 minute a day. That is better than analysis paralysis and not doing anything. So pick one thing if you feel overwhelmed. Pick a couple of things that you can integrate in daily or weekly if you feel like that works for you. This one is kind of funny that what they call it forest bathing, but it's being out in nature, whether that's a field, a forest, a river, a lake, something like that, where you are going to have the sunshine, the earth, which this one is the grounding. We've talked about that, getting our feet on the ground to have the benefits of the magnetic force of the earth, helps our nervous system, helps with inflammation and stress and lots of things. So spending that time in nature, that, can be if you don't live in a place with nature, some people who live in a place that has that available more readily, they'll just go out in their yard, or, take a little 5-minute walk down the street, and they can do that for 5, 10, 15 minutes in the morning, every morning or every evening. If you don't have that, it might be more like once a week, on the weekend or something when you can get that. But the grounding is a little easier. That you can go stand on the rocks outside. I know the rocks are not as comfortable, but the dirt, if you just have dirt, we just have like dirt and rocks. We don't have actual grass, but actually our neighbors have grass. I could just stand on the edge next to but anything like that will work. It's just not like, you don't want artificial. I mean, you can have artificial grass, just standing on it, you won't get the same benefits and all that. But and actually, even just standing on pavement, not blacktop, but like regular concrete, is still rock, technically. And it doesn't have a bunch of plastic or something or rubber in it. So usually that is still pretty good compared to standing on rubber shoes or something else artificial. So you can still get some benefits. Cold plunges, some people have found that to be really, really beneficial. It's been used for thousands of years for athletes to help with inflammation and all kinds of things and help with pain and all of that. If you feel like you have an adrenal fatigue, I caution not to do too much of that, maybe once a week or once a month for just a little bit to get some of those benefits, but you don't want to overdo it on the cold plunges because it can spike the cortisol a little bit. It can continue to tax the adrenals just a little bit if you're doing it a lot all the time, every day or something like that. But everyone is a little bit different. Some people respond better to heat therapy and like sauna stuff and that kind of thing. So it really varies depending on the person. The gut health, we've gone through whole segments on the gut health, and I might touch on it again as we go into the holiday season. But, keeping in mind that keeping that gut in a good place is really, really important. And knowing that when you've gotten to a celebration or whatever it is, and you've had the cake, you've had the pie, Thanksgiving's coming up, the pumpkin pie, whatever it is, that your gut is going to need a little bit of extra love the next day or two. Okay. So it's okay. Enjoy the family celebration, enjoy a little piece of pie, whatever it is. Some of the gluten, some of the dairy, things like that are maybe a little inflammatory. Enjoy it. After that, drink lots of water. The next day or even that evening, drink lots of herbal tea, ginger lemon turmeric tea that you can find with like or if you just have fresh herbs, put it in with your tea, like rosemary, basil, oregano, thyme. Get lots of herbs into your system. The next morning or even that evening, if you have digestive enzymes, take some digestive enzymes. Actually, I say even right after the meal, if you have the ability to do that. The next day, more herbs, as much herbs, garlic, fresh ginger and turmeric, those kinds of things, fresh ginger, turmeric, garlic, your greens, make yourself a green smoothie or something like that. Lots of good soups and broths that are, kind of more healthy. That next day or so, next 24 to 48 hours, really just try to avoid the starches, the pastas, the processed, chips, pretzels, crackers, those kinds of things, the sugary things, just for 24 to 48 hours. It's not forever, but that allows your gut to kind of refresh and reset itself and just flush out the junk and reduce that inflammation. So your body's going to be in a better place to not only metabolize everything you ate and store less fat, which that's great, right? But also to have less inflammation, less nervous system response, which is usually going to contribute to things like anxiety and stress and all of that, right? Your sleep is going to improve. Those are all things that we need, right? Your focus will improve by just taking that 24 to 48 hours after and doing lots of love for your gut and your systems. Okay. Your omega 3s, those really help to regulate the nervous system. So we've talked about, your salmon, your avocado, olive oil, not fried olive oil, like just drizzle it on. Good organic, extra virgin olive oil, and your nuts and seeds have your omega 3s as well. So all of those kinds of things, mostly the seeds, typically they're the ones that have the most, like pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, even sesame seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, any of those have quite a bit of omega 3s. Shaking it off. Now, this is kind of a fun one. If you're someone that likes music and you kind of like to dance, this is great. Even let's say you had a stressful day, or you're getting up in the morning and you're like, oh my gosh, I just am so overwhelmed, or whatever it is. Okay. Take 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you have available to you. Throw some music on. I often will do some sort of praise and worship music, but something that's a little bit more upbeat, and just kind of dance. But you intentionally want to kind of just like shake it out. Like, they say after you do, I don't know, an exercise or something, shake it out. Why? Because it releases the tension physically. But the cool thing is, in recent studies, we're seeing it also is releasing the mental and emotional tension. So just literally, kind of just shake it off, right? There's a song about that. I feel like there's a song that I'm forgetting. Just shake, shake, shake it off or something. Anyways, there's a song. I will spare you my lack of singing abilities. So um slowly absorb your surroundings. So that just means kind of considering, like, where am I right now? Am I stuck inside and it's dark and dim? I'm not getting enough sunlight, no fresh air, and I'm stuck at this computer, whatever. Do I need to just take 2 minutes and shift that and get outside for a few minutes, or go sit by a window with a cup of tea for 2 minutes to refresh? Or am I in an environment where it's just very stressful and everyone's being negative and complaining, or whatever it is? Like, what kind of environment is happening? And considering giving yourself just a little breather from that, whatever that might look like for you, 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever. Get up and stretch, take a deep breath, go walk outside for a couple of minutes, something like that. That can really help. Self hug or cuddle, you want to get the oxytocin, right? So you can do these kinds of things. You can, certain stretches where you can bring your hands together can help. Of course, if you have pets, that's great. Oxytocin, or a loved one, a family member nearby to have some hugs. Those are great things when you can do that. Of course, getting good quality sleep. And we've done whole segments on that. So I think you guys have good. That's it. That's the song. Get Taylor Swift. I forgot that was Taylor Swift. That's so funny. I'm so kind of out of the loop in some of those things. I don't have the time or energy to keep following some of the who is doing what in the celebrity world. But yes, that's it. Shake, shake, shake it off. Okay. So here's a few more tips here, and then we'll wrap up in a few minutes and answer questions. And I may continue this segment next week because I want to have time to go through everyone's strategies. So this I thought was really interesting in understanding, with your nervous system, mentally and emotionally and everything, and just biologically with our neurotransmitters, that sometimes we can go through this cycle and not even really realize it, because it just kind of automatically happens with life, with work, with family things, even with our health habits too. We can feel energized and committed and motivated, right? And then we might start to do something and we might start getting a little overwhelmed, possibly. We might start with withdrawing and shutting down. That can happen. And then eventually, hopefully, we start feeling a little bit better and we'll come back around to the energized and committed. So, what can we do to help with this to not get stuck over here, right? So, I wanted to go through some very specific things. Keeping things simple, like I said, focusing on one or two things at a time, one or two habit shifts, one or two goals, if you will. Replacing things instead of erasing things. So a lot of people are like, oh, I've got to get rid of this bad habit. I've got to stop doing this and stop doing that. And that's not wrong. However, your brain is not wired well to do that. It's going to be a lot better. Your brain is going to have a much easier transition. Your nervous system will have an easier transition. Your emotions will have an easier transition when you can say, okay, this is not helping me, this habit, mental, emotional, nutritional, whatever it is, behavioral, certain irritabilities or whatever it is. I am going to, I get to, I will, I am going to switch that for something better. So we're going to replace that habit instead of erasing it. Does that make sense? So you're going to think about, so I encourage you, if you have like a pen and paper, or maybe just text yourself or something, think of one thing that you kind of would like to erase sort of in your habits. And what is something that you could replace it with? What do you think would be a manageable thing to replace it with? An example in just like kind of more regular life is if you find yourself snapping at a family member when they say certain things or whatever, intentionally deciding I'm going to shift that habit to instead thank them for something that they did, whether it was yesterday, a week ago, whatever it was. It could be something as small as thanks for opening that door or whatever. And as you begin to make those small little shifts, you can see really big changes happen and over time, obviously, right? And that's just kind of a life example, but there's plenty of, health related examples as well with different types of snacking to replace instead of try to erase, right? When I had to eliminate gluten, that's something I had to do because for me, just getting rid of all the gluten, it left a big gap of lots of things that I was eating, right? So instead of erasing all of that, I would replace. So I did it little by little. I would choose a category. Okay, all the bread type products that I used to have, I took a month. I think it might have been almost 2 months for that because that's kind of a big category. And I just worked on every time I wanted to have something that had gluten that was a bread type product, finding something that I could replace it with, whether that was a vegetable, a fruit, or a different type of snack, or maybe a corn tortilla instead, or another gluten-free option instead. And then I would choose the next month or so, I would choose another. So it took me almost a year. The next month was like cookie type things. And I spent a whole month just every time I wanted a cookie type thing, finding something else I could replace it with that still tasted good, whether that was apples with peanut butter or whatever it was. And just little by little by little replacing those things with something better. So that's some examples. Shifting the mental and emotional state. We've talked about that quite a bit on the last little bit. Habit stacking. If you're wanting to add a new habit in, let's say movement, stretching, deep breathing, getting out and grounding, those types of things, stacking it onto something you already do. You brush your teeth every night, put a sticky note near where your toothbrush is to remind yourself to do your stretching before bed. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is, very short, easy, and simple. So it's right there already. You already have a habit. You're just building on top of that. You already grab yourself a beverage before your meals. You already eat your meals, right? But being intentional about before I have this meal and this other, whatever it is, lemonade or tea or something, I get to drink a whole glass of water. before I do this. And then I'm going to go about my normal habit because I know that it's going to help regulate my blood sugar, break through insulin resistance, improve metabolism, and help my body to handle this food better and reduce my portions. It helps control portions and moderate. So that's a simple habit that you can integrate in and stack onto something you're already doing. Intentional stress management and simple routines, which is what we've been kind of talking about. So here's some things for the more mental, emotional components. If that's something that you feel like you need to work on, these are some things you can think about adding into your routine. Pick one or two. Don't feel like you need to do all of these, okay? Journaling can be a really beneficial habit. I recommend a lot of times to do it in the evening before bed. Again, put a note next to your toothbrush or something because it helps release the stress of the day and get your thoughts and emotions out of your mind. So as you're going to sleep, they're not cluttering up the mind and, disrupting sleep or whatever it is, and just regulating that nervous system in that way. Reading, listening to podcasts, exercising, of course, and movement. We've talked about that. Spending a little time alone, like taking a breather, right? Even if it's 2 minutes. As a busy mom, that's something really big that I learned. It took me a while to learn, I would say, probably by, I think, my second child, when she was like a toddler, I started to realize like mommy needs, and it's better for everyone if mommy can take a quick little 5-minute breather every once in a while. So sometimes when they would all be asking me for stuff, I'd say, hey, mommy is really tired right now. I love you. I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to help you with that in 5 minutes, but mommy needs a quick little break, a little, sometimes I would even tell them that mommy needs a little timeout, or whatever, because I understood that. Something like that, because we all need those little breaks sometimes. Maintaining routines and habits, even if you miss a day, coming back and just picking it up again. Be like, that's okay. I'm normal. I'm human. I missed a day. That's okay. Starting with stillness, the beginning of your day somewhere, or like we've talked about, taking the 1 minute of deep breathing and gratitude before each meal. Or if you just, need to start with one meal a day, doing that and then go from there. Something like that. Being productive, which means just encouraging yourself, challenging yourself to have one thing a day that you are achieving, whatever that might be. It might be doing the dishes, it might be getting groceries, it might be just that one thing. And then once you feel like you've done that for a little while, you can add on another thing and just keep building. Using mindfulness, like we've said, the mental and emotional shifting, the gratitude, prayer, affirmations, those kinds of things. Making healthier choices, they're replacing instead of erasing, like I said. So here's a couple of ideas, some good habits. We kind of went through some of those. So I think I'm going to come back to that on our next time. I put our little pie chart here just as a reminder. Whether this is mental habits, emotional habits, or exercise or nutrition, every single day is your pie. And so you're always picturing, okay, I can let myself have this one little treat as long as I'm making sure that the rest of my day, the 80 to 90%, the rest of my day is full of the good things, these good habits like this, these types of things, the good nutrition choices, all of that. I'm allowed to have my little slice that is my wiggle room for each day. And I can enjoy it and not feel guilty about it at all. When I have that one little bit, then it's good. The rest of my day, I'm going to make sure I'm fueling my mind and my body well. Okay. Just a little reminder with that. Some things that actually calm the nervous system to kind of keep in mind when it comes to your nutrition and everything are things like dark organic cacao, which you can just get dark organic cacao powder and mix it into things. It's a little bit bitter by itself. So that's why people put it with sugar a lot of times. But you can put it into a little bit of tea or a little smoothie, things like that with some, like let's say banana, peanut butter, and a little cacao powder, right? Delicious. Or some other nut butter or whatever. Chamomile, bananas. As always, I encourage you to pair bananas with some sort of protein, whether that's a protein powder in a shake or whatever, or nuts and seeds or not some sort of nut butter. Asparagus, interestingly enough. So that's good to know. Probably not fried or, saturated in butter, but, moderation is always key. Walnuts, flax seeds. So there's your omega-3s that we talked about. Spinach, Brazil nuts, which have some magnesium as well as the omega-3s. Raspberries, avocados, your omega-3s, as well as some other things like potassium, and sweet potatoes. So those are just a few ideas of things that you can add into your routines. Okay. I wanted to touch on these habits really quick as we end here, and we'll come back to this next week and review too, because I know there's a few people who couldn't make it this time. Your just some tips for around, celebrations and holidays and things like that when you might have more treats and things. Think about your plate, having half of your plate be vegetables and fruit. And then you have, your protein, and then you allow yourself a little bit of whatever it is, the mashed potatoes, the something else. Okay. So that you have that visual picture in mind to help remind you, okay, half of this needs to be my vegetables and fruits. I've got my protein, and then I allow myself a little bit of something when it comes to holidays and stuff. If you're on a detox or something, it's going to be different. Before large meals, before holiday meals, if you're at a restaurant, challenge yourself to drink a whole thing of 8 to 10 ounces of water before you start eating. That helps a lot. If you happen to have a vitamin powder on hand or electrolyte, something to throw in there, great. That helps even more because you're getting more micronutrients into your body before you're eating all that. And it will be easier to control cravings. It will be easier to make better choices and moderate portion sizes, as well as just helping with blood sugar and stuff like that. When you have half your plate with the greens and stuff, you're going to eat your vegetables first off of your plate, and then you can work on the other areas. Depending on the person, a lot of times I'll recommend the greens, then the protein, and then whatever your carbohydrate is, your rice or whatever it is, but it does vary depending on the person. Enjoying different food groups, choosing whole grain and hummus, or whole grain crackers or something like that, or rice crackers and some hummus instead of like potato chips or whatever when you can. Things like nuts, black beans, green leafy salad, those types of things in your meals and as you're making things for the holidays. Making sure your protein is lean, turkey, roast beef, a little bit of fresh ham. I'm not sure what they mean by fresh ham because in general, I don't feel like ham is very fresh, but a little bit of ham, maybe some legumes, certain types of fish like salmon that are high in your omegas and everything, lean proteins, so on and so forth there. Going light on the sauces and gravies. Sauces and gravies hide a lot of extra random stuff. Not only additives and preservatives, but also extra carbs, extra fats, all that kind of stuff. Sauces and gravies are a little bit sneaky. I know, it's tough. Cheers to good health. You can quench your thirst. Have water with lemon or something before you allow yourself that one holiday cocktail or whatever is that one glass of wine or whatever it is that you're going to have. Or have some sparkling water with fruit in it, citrus or whatever fruit is available as an alternative instead of the alcohol. Or you have your one drink and then after that, you just have some sparkling water with fruit in it as your little fun drink to have, but you're not going to be getting all of the inflammatory issues with the alcohol. It'll be a lot better. Baking healthier, substituting with things like applesauce, bananas, nut butters, cinnamon and allspice, nutmeg, those types of things can help, with the flavors. And so you still can have a little, let's say pumpkin bread or something, but you're switching out some of those ingredients for better options. Add some protein in. If you're baking cookies, cakes, muffins, all those kinds of things, even pancakes, waffles, so on, cinnamon buns. You can add in a little bit of like a vanilla protein powder. Usually the flavor complements, but you're boosting up they're enhancing the nutrient value. And that helps with the glycemic index as well, blood sugar, right? And then if you want to substitute the flour, you can do like a, gluten-free flour, rice flour, flaxseed, those kinds of things, or these other options like nut butters and stuff to help balance out the all the sugars and carbs and stuff. And even in a recipe, it calls for X amount of sugar. Even if you just cut the sugar by just a little bit, you can still have it tastes really good, but you're having less of that processed sugar happening. For dessert, substituting apples with cinnamon or apples with a nut butter instead of sugar. Other alternatives, yogurts, and parfaits and things like that are still really fun. You can have fruit and all kinds of different flavors, but it's less butter, sugar, all the processed stuff. So finding ways to kind of substitute sometimes. Have fun, dance, play games, enjoy the connection, enjoy the people as much as you can. Because when you're having fun, you're not focused on the food as much. You're not focused on all the, the whatever. You're having fun. And guess what? Your cortisol is going to be lower. Your metabolism is going to go up. Have fun, enjoy, laugh. Laughter is good medicine, like the Bible says, right? Enjoying leftovers, moderating those leftovers, taking those leftovers, putting them in a good soup with bone broth and vegetables and fresh, garlic, ginger, herbs, then you're going to still enjoy those leftovers, but you're getting them in a much healthier way, or tossing them into some sort of salad or something like that. So you can still enjoy them, but just moderating how you're enjoying that so you can have more benefits. Giving to others. If there's a lot of leftovers of like stuffing, maybe keep a small amount, give some to the homeless person on the corner, or find a shelter to donate to, things like that, so that you're not wasting, but it's a little bit healthier for you to do that. I heard someone say she wanted cake, she would make a cake, she would have her one slice of the cake and she would throw the cake out. And I'm like, wait, give it to someone. Don't throw the whole cake out. But the concept is allow yourself some, but don't have to keep all of it. So I hope that some of these tips are helpful for you guys. We're going to come back and do some of these other habits next time. I want to make sure that we have time to go through specific strategies to support you guys, so you have your tools in your tool belt for the upcoming week or so.